What is going on, everyone? It's your guy, Cole Jackson, back here on Road Graders. And today I am pleased to be bringing you a very special episode on the bye week. I'm bringing in my fellow countryman, Brent Urban, defensive lineman for your Baltimore Ravens. Brent was born and raised in Mississauga, Ontario, about 4 hours down the road from where I grew up. So, very exciting for me personally. He went on to attend the University of Virginia, being drafted in the fourth round of the 2014 draft by the Ravens. Brent went on to play with the Titans, Bears, and Cowboys before returning home last year and subsequently re-signing this past season. Let's bring him in. Brent, my guy, how is it going?
Great, man. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I feel like I'm on the bye week too. So much time spent following this team that loves to give me tons of heart attack games. But no, doing good, doing good. How was the bye week for you?
Great. It was good, man. Nice to get some time off. Like, never had a bye this late in the season. So I think it'll be good for like the final stretch, but it was definitely kind of feeling it, towards the last week or so. So it was good, man. Got away to New York City with the family and got some rest, relaxation, ready to go.
Love it. Have you ever had a season where you've traveled this much? Because I think you guys topped the league this far in terms of miles traveled.
Yeah, it's been rough, man. We still what head out to Jacksonville. It's not too far, and then the Niners game obviously too. So it's definitely by far been the most travel I've done.
They didn't want to make it easy on you guys.
No, definitely not. But that's all right. No excuses. It is what it is.
Love it, love it. And when I do these, I love to start right at the very start. Obviously, when you were drafted by the Ravens, you were drafted in the same year as John Urschel. So I went from having no Canadians to two. So for me, that was super exciting. But and like most Canadians, I knew you grew up playing hockey, and not just any hockey. You were playing AAA top of Ontario hockey with a very good Mississauga Ice Dogs program. But I'm just kind of wondering, like, what got you into football? I know it's just not that common up here to get people into the sport. You see some guys playing basketball, some guys playing football, but was it a parent that got you into it? Was it your dad was into it, or where did kind of your football roots come from?
Yeah, I think growing up, we knew I'd be a fairly big kid. I was always kind of like the biggest in my class, like as I went through every single year, and played basketball originally. Then we moved to the suburbs, played hockey. My dad was always like an NFL fan. He'd always kind of have it on. He was a big like Patriots fan during that time, so he'd always play the game. No, I know, it was terrible. But he'd always have the games on. I'd watch a little bit, and I think there was a certain point where I kind of got into it enough where I would try to play like before high school, but they have like weight limits and stuff like that. So I was obviously like weighed too much and just played hockey for the time being. And then kind of my ninth grade year, I knew, I was kind of interested in playing football at that point. The junior varsity coach obviously like saw me on orientation, was like, "Oh, you have to play,"
You gotta look for the biggest guys.
Yeah. So didn't really sucker me into playing because I kind of had aspirations to do so. But it was like my dad's initial love for the game, and the coach kind of getting me to go and just kind of see what it's all about. And really, that's how I started.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty common for a lot of, like, you don't see too much. It's getting bigger now with youth ball. But did you play like OPFL or anything, or you started in high school, eh?
Yeah, I just started right in high school. I played for Mississauga Warriors, like that summer league. Yeah, so they had a coach, Sean McKenna, who was kind of a great coach there. And once I realized it'd probably be good to play in the summer as well, especially because that didn't really connect with didn't overlap with hockey. Like I had a lot of trouble like going from high school practices all the way to Vaughan for hockey practice and stuff like that. So it got a little crazy, but
every weekend too, you guys are pretty much in tournaments,
sure,
right?
Man. Yeah, absolutely. So it got to be a lot. And the summer league was nice because it felt like the talent level was a little bit higher and like that kind of thing. So yeah, I played in the summer, and then our high school, was pretty successful, as far as like going to our like regional championships and that kind of thing. So there was like a little like football tradition there that kind of, I kind of got my attention, I guess, coming in. So.
And so you're one of the rare guys that you went to UVA out of high school in Mississauga, right? You didn't go to a prep school in the States, which is,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that's, I mean, it happens, but from most of the guys that I can think of, most of them would hit prep school first. So, were you recruited by US high schools, or was it like a conscious decision you made to kind of stay in Canada?
Yeah, I honestly wanted to stay just to like spend time with my friends and stuff, knowing that I was probably going to go to the States. I think the biggest help that it wasn't really necessary for me to go to US high school is, me and my dad would load up the car and go to all those camps, like Penn State camps.
Right.
There was the Nike camps, Nike combines, all that kind of stuff. And that got me enough exposure. I didn't really need to go anywhere for high school. I didn't have like too many big name offers. I think Notre Dame was my best by far, but then the rest was kind of like ACC schools like Maryland. I think I had like Vanderbilt and stuff like that. So I didn't have like huge offers, but it was still enough where I just kind of found it unnecessary just to go somewhere for my senior year or whatever the case may be.
Nice. And so what led you to picking UVA? Was there something, was it a coach that you kind of connected with, or, what did they sell you on the program?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the big things was they put a lot of linemen in the NFL that I thought was, really cool. Like they had Chris Long and Eugene Monroe and, kind of a Patrick Kearney before that, like a lot of good D linemen. Al Groh is the head coach. He kind of had like the NFL background and that sort of thing. The academics was really good. Like Notre Dame offered me, I was like, yeah, that's great, but you have like Stephon Tuitt and Lewis Nix. Like I'm never gonna play if I go there. So I kind of wanted to find like a school in the mid range where I
Right.
knew it was like still a successful program, but that I was also going to be able to play. And so kind of UVA fit that criteria. And yeah, it was good academics, beautiful campus. It kind of checked all the boxes for me.
Nice. And so after a solid career at UVA, including a really nice senior season, you got drafted 4th round of the 2014 NFL draft, but you were also drafted into the 2013 CFL draft by the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So most of the people that'll be watching this probably don't follow the CFL, fair enough. But it's pretty common for Canadians that are, even if they're bona fide 100% going to the NFL, they'll still get picked in the CFL draft because they'll retain your rights. And if something happens, they would have you on there. So when you were drafted by the Ticats, was it always the NFL to you? Like, or was it like, were you ever considering the CFL as a possible option?
Not really, to be honest. Like, as far like my career trajectory when I was in college, I honestly like didn't really do a whole lot until my senior year. I was kind of like new coach.
Your senior year was nuts.
Yeah, it was like, man, college was kind of a crazy journey for me where like I came into Al Groh, I did really well, and I was like one of the freshmen where I would just like travel just to like see what it was like, to get prepped for my next year where, I'd actually play. And then that whole coaching staff gets fired. New coaching staff comes in and they kind of change the defensive personnel where it's like we're going to a 4-3 now. I'm kind of like 6'7", 290. Like, do I play 3 technique or end still? And then I tear my ACL that spring
Right.
ball. So I was just like buried for years, basically. And then junior year, like somebody got hurt, and then I played really well. And then it was like, okay, going into my senior year, I finally had like a starting job locked down and stuff. So it was like kind of a crazy journey where I really didn't even play till my senior year. So it was hard for me to know like what my NFL prospects would be. But I think just as far as like, compensation in the CFL, and like I was just like, man, I'll just like get a regular job or something, man. Like we're gonna see how this senior year goes. And I knew kind of my talent level, and I thought like, if I get a real shot to play, like I'm gonna get some looks with my size and that kind of thing. So it honestly like wasn't much of a consideration. It was just like, thanks, I appreciate the recognition, but like I'm gonna go try my best to play in the NFL.
Makes sense. And another guy that's had, or had kind of a different journey, I guess I'll say, is Tavious Robinson, who was drafted by the Ravens in his rookie year. And we all saw the Ravens Wired clip of you saying this is on prime time for Canada when he got his first sack. Loved it. Loved every minute of it. Is he someone you've been able to kind of bond with, with that Canadian connection, or?
Yeah, for sure. He's a great kid, man. He's super tough, really intelligent, like does whatever the coaches say. Like he's just a great dude. And so, being another Canadian, obviously, like, and an older guy, I try to like help him out with, even visa questions, like all types of stuff that nobody else would really know, right?
Right,
so,
right. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
For sure, man. So like work visa and like, there's so much like little things I've had to learn along the way, like being a Canadian, right? Playing, in the States. So me and Tavious have, got a good bond going and kind of, helped him out with that kind of transition. So definitely bonded on it under that. Like there's not many of us. I know like I play with Neville Gallimore in Dallas, but there's really so few of us, man. It's also cool to be like in the same position room too, right? Where it's like we're kind of spending so much time with each other each and every single day. So yeah, it's been cool to hang out with Tavious and like take a younger guy under my wing like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And speaking of your role, like to me, your role is really defined. You are one of the more unselfish players, and you kind of always have been. You've been the guy that gets in there and does the nitty gritty work. And not often are you kind of put in spots of glory, but we saw against the Chargers, you launch yourself without hesitation on that football, getting that fumble recovery. So how sweet is it getting, a moment like that with the glory and spotlight in prime time? Probably all of Canada was watching, so we love that. How fun is that, getting that kind of moment with your role on the team?
It's great, man. Yeah, I mean, like playing in any primetime game is a lot of fun. Being a guy who like prides himself on being like a run stopper, like 5 technique. A lot of teams playing like 11 personnel now and stuff like that. You don't get a chance to like shine as much, I guess you'd say. But yeah, kind of having that role is a role I've kind of carved for myself, like from getting hurt so much and that sort of thing. I kind of found my niche where, my body didn't necessarily like it limited me in certain fashions, like coming back from injury and stuff. So I kind of got good at like doing the stuff no one else wanted to do or was like good at, you know what I mean? Just like just stayed consistent as far as, playing double teams and, being a good run stopper, 2-gapper, all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was great, man. Anytime you can contribute in primetime games and stuff like that is always a lot of fun. And, when the ball bounces your way, it's you got to take advantage.
And you can't forget the PBUs, because I think I tweet, feels like once at least every 2 games. Oh, another Brent Urban PBU, just on the pass rush, getting the hands up with the 6-7 frame. So love that too.
Yeah, that's right.
So you had stints after your first trip with the Ravens with the Titans, Bears, and Cowboys. You re-signed with the Ravens last May, I guess it would have been. Joined a very deep defensive line group and carved out that role. So what was it about Baltimore and free agency that kind of brought you back to where it all started?
I think like number one is just the system, like I kind of know like Mike McDonald was our assistant linebackers coach, my like rookie year and stuff. So he kind of like brought a kind of similar personnel as far as like our Raven based defense goes and stuff like that. So I knew it'd be a good spot, especially coming off injury in Dallas, which was a kind of a different like front. It was like kind of my first time playing a more like get off style front and that whole thing. So I thought just coming off of injury and I think like knowing the personnel who they had there, I think Derek Wolfe was like dealing with injury. It just seemed like a good spot coming back as far as need and just knowing like what's a good fit for me. And just especially coming off injury, you don't want to take too many risks as far as like trying a new system or anything like that. So I knew Baltimore would be just a great fit in general. I played well here before and that'd be a good fit again.
Hey, and you've played under some great DCs through your career. You had Pease, Martindale, Pagano, Quinn, Mike Mack. Who stood out to you that where you kind of thrived the most under?
Yeah, it's hard to say, man. It's hard to like single out one guy in particular just because they were so great at like certain moments in my career, right? Like Dean Pease giving me like my first start and I was really playing a lot. Obviously I got hurt a ton when he was there, but I had like a pretty prominent role when he was there. So I like appreciate my time with him. And then Wink came in. I think we were like the number 1 defense that year the right before I left. So it was obviously great being a part of that. And I think Pagano, I actually played with for the Bears, and that was my best statistical season. And it was kind of a similar like system that we played in Baltimore and stuff. So it was a really good fit for me to go there. And then as far as Mike goes, like he's fun to play for because he mixes up looks so much. You know what I mean? Like he kind
It's
of like
crazy.
there's so many disguises and stuff like that. It really puts us in a position to kind of win the down before it starts. You know what I mean? And kind of keeps offenses on their heels. And so it's fun to be a part of too, man. It's hard to kind of pick my favorite. You know, I won't necessarily do that, but they're all kind of great for their individual things. And, you know, I appreciate my time under each of them.
It definitely stands out that they all had connections to Baltimore pretty much throughout their entire, that's definitely something, speaks to kind of the legacy of defensive football in Baltimore. And another guy that you're playing under right now is assistant head coach and your D-line coach, Anthony Weaver. And he's one of those guys where when I try and pay attention to player quotes throughout the season, it's just the type of guy that just always has those glowing reviews. Kind of reminds me of Mike McDonald, a few years ago before he left to go to Michigan before coming back. And, it just makes you think probably has, a DC role coming up in his future. What is it about his approach that makes it so appetizing for you guys as players?
Yeah, Weave's a great dude, man. He's just like, he's such a good motivator. Like each and every day, he just like always has juice and like knows how to kind of bring energy and get the most out of us, but also like keeps things light and like a lot of fun in position meetings where we're not like, dozing off, or it's not like super monotone, just going over everything. So like we have a lot of fun, but he kind of knows when to like turn it on and like in a more serious note. So it's been great to be coached by him, a former player, a guy who's played the position in Baltimore. He kind of gets the legacy and what it means to be like a Baltimore Raven. So, all those things combined just make him such a good coach. And he's so like well-spoken and such a good communicator. Like it just makes for such a great coach. And, I've had a blast kind of playing for him.
Makes sense. And, okay, so I always ask this when I get to talk to players because I'm always curious. Through your 8 seasons, what offensive linemen, so I guess we'd be looking more probably at guards, have you matched up that you think's been your toughest matchup?
I think the number one tough is it's going to be an offensive tackle. Like I'd say probably like peak Trent Williams. I played against him when he was for the Redskins. Redskins like back in the day. This was probably like my 2017, 2018. Yeah, this was only preseason too, and he was just like the fastest, biggest dude like I've ever gone against. He's like an absolute mountain, and just his quickness and strength was just crazy. It just felt like you couldn't beat him. I'd say like him as far as offensive tackle. Brandon Brooks was probably the best guard I played against when he was with the Eagles. This was like 2019, 2018. When I played for the Bears, we played against them. The guy's just a tank, could move really well, like super strong, just massive, massive guy with long arms too, which you don't necessarily find like inside. So it helps. Usually I'll have that advantage inside where I have length. Those guys might be a little like, shorter and squatter and maybe a little stronger, but I always usually have the length advantage. But to go against guards like that where they're long, they're like super strong and they're quick, it's just kind of tough. It's hard to find your advantage, right?
Right.
I'd say probably those two guys were the best I played against.
And yeah, it's crazy. I was reading something the other day. It was Brandon Thorne doing some analysis about the crazy part about Trent Williams this year is that he's actually lost a step. So it's hard to imagine him back in the, in the period you're talking about where he's even faster than his already elite self, like next level, all pro stuff. And then on the flip side, were there any, 3-5 techniques that you would admire and kind of, watch film on to kind of mold your game after?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. I think like my absolute favorite was probably like Calais when he played for Jacksonville. Like he was just so much fun to watch. He was like one of the few guys that were like actually taller than me too. And he played and he played the position in such an unorthodox way where I played a lot more like I play with like just super sound technique. Like I'm like square, lockout, stack and shed type of guy where he's like doing crazy stuff, like, swimming tight ends and like spinning in the run game. It's just like so fun to watch, to see how like kind of how he would just create such disruption. And, one of those years, I don't know, he had like 30 plus TFLs. Like he was just a monster in the run game. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. And I think, yeah, when I was in Tennessee, we played him in Jacksonville, and like he had like 3 sacks against us, and he was like hitting spin moves and like just all types of crazy stuff for like a guy his height and size. He was probably like my favorite to watch, and it was really cool to play with him last year, obviously, and kind of take parts of his game and tips and just kind of see how he prepares each and every week. So I'd say probably Calais was probably my favorite. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, you guys are like the same archetype, like
Yeah.
just big, long, strong. And then one thing I wanted to ask you, just because I think this can always be really helpful to anyone that may be playing in their own youth ball. But you've had a number of injuries throughout your career. You mentioned the ACL when you were at UVA, even going back to your rookie year in Baltimore in 2014. But you've always come back, and you've always come back to be productive and carve out a role. So well, you're dealing with not only just the physical side, but the mental side of that adversity of overcoming an injury. What would be your message to someone that has to do that? What could you pass on as advice for them?
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like my injuries kind of helped me mature really quickly. It's just the worst part of it is just going in every single day, and it's like so mundane. You're just doing like, it starts off with you're just like moving it at like the smallest amount, right? And then you're like slowly building each and every day, and it's so mundane. You're like, man, am I ever going to get healthy type of thing. So it's tough, man. It's trying. And I think my first go with it was probably the worst, and you slowly get used to injuries, and especially like when they're that major. I didn't, at this point in my career, I haven't seen like too many guys have as many like major injuries that I've had. And a big help for me actually when I was with Baltimore early on was guys like Terrell Suggs. Like he had a bunch of injuries. Marshall Yonda, like those were guys I'd kind of look at and be like, how are they coming back from injury, or like little things they can help me with. Because man, it's tough. There's no like really easy solution for it. It's really just like just each and every day, just focus on what you have to do. Yeah, it's just like the grind. You just have to like make the most out of it, make it fun, embrace it just however you can. Because it's really there's no simple way about it. It's just you just have to do the work, and you have to like just believe. And yeah, it's really just to get through the grind, man. It's hard to put into words what you have to do, but it's just getting over that mundane part and trying to like challenge yourself. And it'll make you better for it in the end. You'll realize how much you've kind of grown going through those type of adversities, instead of just when everything's easy, you don't really get to learn about yourself. But it's those hard challenges that really kind of let you know what you're built of, and kind of make sure moving forward it's like so easy to get through anything. Like I feel like, man, it like doesn't even matter what happens to me at this point. I've been through so much where I've built up that like getting through all that, where it's just nothing can really break me.
Yeah, the resiliency. And I mean, that's the thing, like for, coming from my perspective as a fan, it's like someone gets hurt, they go on IR, and it's like you almost think it's Madden where you simulate the off season and they're just back and healthy, right? We don't see it. Like it's
No.
that's why I always say, especially in preseason, just pray for good health. That's all that really matters.
For
Keep
sure.
these guys healthy. And then last year, I had to ask this, you guys made a huge deadline signing, bringing in Roquan Smith from the Bears. How big, like obviously the player on the field, we all see the type of impact he can make when you put him in the middle of your defense. But, what it seems like where he really carved out the biggest value add was the voice in the room. What was it like kind of seeing him come in mid-season, taking on that leadership role for the Ravens defense?
Yeah, it was cool. When I first heard the news, I was super excited. Like my wife got actually so excited, man, because I'd played with him for 2 years in Chicago, right? And
Yeah.
having him as a middle linebacker was so great. Like he would always be in the, like, whenever I would make a great play to get in the backfield, he would always be next to me. Like, I don't think I had like any solo tackles that year, but I had the most tackles I had ever had in a season. So just initially, like, from his playing ability, I was like super happy. And when we were in Chicago, he honestly wasn't as much of a vocal leader. So it's been cool to see like how he developed that. In Chicago, we had Danny Trevathan and a lot of like older guys like that who were like really good vocal leaders. And so it was cool to see him come here. Last year he was a vocal leader, but like this year he's really kind of taken over that role. Last year we obviously had Justin Houston and Calais and Josh Bynes and stuff who would do that sort of thing. But I think, after them leaving, he really kind of took it upon himself to be a great leader. And he has like a great quote like every week now. It's crazy, man. Just like the stuff he comes up with.
He's hitting the philosophy books. He's got to pull out the next great motivational. I know,
he's got to be like looking at all, who knows what man to come up with this stuff. But yeah, each and every week he just finds a way to get us motivated and just brings the energy. He's the guy you want to play for and play with. And it's been great to kind of watch that growth from him.
Yeah, it's super noticeable, the amount of swagger that this defense walks with. It feels like old school Baltimore Ravens football again. And, especially what you said about Weaves and, even like Denard Wilson in the DB room, like it seems like he's got that kind of swagger. Chuck Smith in the outside linebacker room. So it's great to kind of just see all of that. It's like a perfect storm that's resulting in some really good defensive football, and it's a real treat for me to watch. So thank you for being a part of that.
For sure, man. No, it's been a blast.
And so, I won't keep you too much longer, so we'll wrap up. But thank you so much for your time, and best of luck out the bye. Tough stretch coming up, but when you kind of look ahead at your schedule and you see those kind of game stacking where you got tough matchups, primetime matchups, what's the best way to prepare for that?
Honestly, man, we're excited for those games because it kind of lets us know where we're at, right? They're kind of like measuring stick games where you get to kind of figure out, just how good are we, right? Like we've done great up until this point, but like the Jaguars and the 49ers and teams like that, you just really want to play and just see, what it's like. We're all alpha males and mega competitors, and we just want to like just all right, let's go. Like, how good are you? So there's no other way than just like we want to prepare and play those games, honestly.
Nice. That'll make people's days on a Monday morning. So thank you so much for joining me, Brent. Really appreciate your time. Best of luck down the stretch.
For sure. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.